Hey guys, this is the third part of the midterm review. Let's go ahead and get started. Manny has budgeted $100 monthly to spend on seeing movies. He's already spent $72 of his budget on movies that cost $8 each. The expression 8M plus 72, where M represents the number of movies represents his movie expenditures. Complete the table to determine how many more movies he can see this month. So, we have a table with values for months and then our expressions. So we just need to fill in our table by substituting M values. So when you substitute in 1, you will get 80. When you substitute in 2 to the expression, you get 88. When you substitute 3 into the expression, you get 96. And when you substitute 4 into the expression, you get 104. And when you substitute 5 into the expression, you get 112. Alright, our next problem says that Nadia has a bug collection containing 21 bugs. If she collects 3 new bugs per day, how many days will it take her to have 162 bugs in her collection? Let's go ahead and write an equation to solve this problem. Well, she has 21 right now. And she's going to collect 3 bugs per day. So that will be 3 bugs times the number of days. So D, she's collected them. And we want to know how long it's going to take her to get to 162. So equals 162. So we need to solve this equation for D. So we'll subtract 21 from both sides. And I get 3D is equal to 141. Last step is to divide by 3. And I have D is equal to 47, so 47 days. Number 7, we have to solve the absolute value of n plus 5 equals 13. Remember, since the absolute value of positive 13 is equal to 13, and the absolute value of negative 13 is also equal to 13, we will have 2 cases or 2 solutions for this absolute value equation. The first being n plus 5 equals 13, because when we take the absolute value of 13, it'll give us 13. And the second case being n plus 5 equals negative 13, because when we take the absolute value of negative 13, we also get 13. So we need to solve each of these equations, and they will both be part of my solution. So looking at n plus 5 equals 13, I have to subtract 5 from both sides, and I get n is equal to 8. Over the other equation, n plus 5 equals negative 13, subtract 5, and I get n is equal to negative 18. So my solution is n is equal to 8, or n is equal to negative 18. Number 9, I have another equation to solve. I need to solve negative 3x plus 2 equals 7x minus 18. I have variables on both sides. I want them on one side. So I am going to subtract 7x from both sides. That cancels out my x's on the right, leaving me with negative 10x plus 2 equals negative 18. Now I just solve this like a normal 2-step equation. Subtract 2 from each side. I get negative 10x is equal to negative 20. Divide both sides by negative 10. And I get x is equal to 2 as my solution. Number 13, I have to complete the table, and I have to find out if the expressions appear to be equivalent. So again, all I'm doing is substituting these x values into each of my expressions. And I'm going to look to see if the values of the expressions here and here are going to be the same. If they all match up, then they are equivalent. If they do not, then they are not equivalent. So when I substitute negative 2 into each expression, I get 2 and 2. When I substitute the 0, I get negative 10 and negative 10. When I substitute 2, I get negative 22 and negative 22. And when I substitute 4, I get negative 34 and negative 34. So again, since all those values match up, the expressions do appear to be equivalent. So if one of these values, say this 2, happened to be a 3, even though just one of them is different, it would not have been equivalent. But since they all matched up, these expressions do appear to be equivalent. Number 10 says, Marion must choose between 2 cleaning services. Mildred's cleaning service charges $25 cleaning product fee and $12 per hour for the work. Tim's cleaning service charges a $13 cleaning product fee and $15 per hour for the work. We have to write an equation that models each of these situations. So I need to write an equation for Mildred and write an equation for Tim. Well, looking at Mildred's situation, that's this part right here. It has a flat fee of $25 plus $12 per hour. And Tim, his stuff is right here. Tim has a flat rate of $13, then plus $15 per hour. We're going to use our graphing calculator to help determine which hour the cost of both services will be the same. So you need to take each of these expressions, go to y equals, graph them, and to find when the cost of both services will be the same, you have to find the intersection of those two lines. And the intersection of those two lines, whenever you graph them, they will intersect at 4 hours. Number 15, we have an expression, the absolute value of negative 3x plus y all over 2y minus 3. We have to evaluate it whenever x is equal to 4 and y is equal to negative 2. So all I have to do for this, ladies and gentlemen, is just substitute the values it gives me into the expression. So I have the absolute value of negative 3 times x, but x is 4, so I have negative 3 times 4, plus y, but y is negative 2, so plus negative 2. Close up my absolute value. And that needs to be all over 2y, but y is negative 2, minus 3. Now, simple order of operations. Do what's inside my absolute value first, giving me the absolute value of negative 12 minus 2 all over, I'll go ahead and do the multiplication on the bottom. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4 minus 3. Negative 12 minus 2 is negative 14, so I have the absolute value of negative 14. Over negative 4 minus 3, which is negative 7. The absolute value of negative 14 is 14, so I have 14 over negative 7, which is just negative 2. Number 19, we have to solve the inequality. 4 times the quantity of negative 2p plus 1 is less than 3p minus 18. So for this inequality, the first thing you need to do is just do some simplifying. So I'm going to simplify 4 times the quantity of negative 2p plus 1 by using the distributive property. So I'm going to distribute the 4 to the negative 2p, giving me negative 8p. And I'm going to distribute the 4 to the 1, so plus 4. That's going to be less than 3p minus 18. I have variables on both sides. I want them on 1. So I'm going to subtract 3p from both sides. 3p's on the right cancel out. I have negative 8p minus 3p, which is negative 11p plus 4, which is less than negative 18. Subtract 4 from each side. I get negative 11p is less than negative 22. Divide both sides by negative 11. Since I'm divided by a negative number, I flip my sign so I have p is greater than 2. Number 18 says, a city is repaving Maple and Oak Streets. 5 blocks of Maple Street have been repaved, and the work is progressing at a rate of 2 blocks per hour. 3 blocks of Oak Street have been repaved, and the work is progressing at a rate of 3 blocks per hour. Set up an inequality and solve it to determine the number of hours h in which more blocks will be paved on Oak Street than Maple Street. So let's go ahead and let's set up expressions for each of the streets. So let's set up Maple Street first. It says that Maple Street has 5 blocks have been repaved, and they are progressing at a rate of 2 blocks per hour. So for Maple, that looks like 5 plus 2h. Then for Oak, we already have 3 blocks paved, and it is progressing at 3 blocks per hour. So that looks like 3 plus 3h. And we need to write the inequality to determine the number of hours in which more blocks will be paved on Oak Street than on Maple Street. So Oak needs to be greater than Maple. So if I take 3 plus 3h, I know it needs to be greater than 5 plus 2h. So now I just need to solve this inequality for h. I need to get my variables on one side, so I'm going to do that by subtracting 2h from both sides. 2h's on the right cancel out. I have 3 plus h is greater than 5. Subtract 3. And I get h is greater than 2. So after 2 hours, there will be more blocks paved on Oak than there are on Maple. Number 21 says 17 is what percent of 85? 17 is what percent of 85? This is a P, Q, R problem where P is percent, Q is the original quantity, and R is the result. So we are given, right away, we know that 17 is our result. So since 17 is my result, I know R is equal to 17. And then it's asking 17 is what percent? What percent? That's a dead giveaway that I don't know my percentage. That's what I'm trying to find. So I then know that Q is 85. Remember, our equation is P times Q is equal to R. I don't know my percentage, so that's P times 85 is equal to 17. So now I just need to solve this equation for P. Divide by 85. So P is equal to 17 over 85, which is then 0.2 or 20%. Number 24 is asking us if the graphs of y equals x squared plus 4x minus 21 and y equals the quantity of x minus 3 times the quantity of x plus 7 are the same. We're going to do that. We're going to find out if they're the same by using the graphing features on our graphing calculator. So what you need to do is go into your calculator, go to y equals, graph both of those, hit graph, and see if they are the same graph. Whenever you do graph these, they will make the same graph. So we know they are the same because they make the same graph. Number 1, Jim's swimming pool holds 30,000 gallons of water. How many hours will it take to fill his pool at a rate of 6 gallons per minute? So we're filling up at 6 gallons per 1 minute. And we can set a proportion to see how long it's going to take us to get to 30,000 gallons. So over the amount of time. Cross multiply to solve that. You get 6x equals 30,000. Divide by 6. You get x is equal to 5,000. Now, notice we are given that it's 6 gallons per minute. So what we have right now is 5,000 minutes. So to find out how many hours it'll take, because it's asking us how many hours, we need to take 5,000 rather, divided by 60, giving us 83 and a third of an hour. In 1973, the Great Horse Secretariat set a world record at the Belmont Stakes race. He ran 1.5 miles in 2 minutes and 24 seconds. We need to find out how many feet per second did Secretariat run. So right now, it gives us that he ran 1.5 miles in 2 minutes and 24 seconds. So we want to get that all in the same unit. So let's make it all in seconds. So since 2 minutes is equal to 120 seconds, we know that the horse ran 1.5 miles in 144 seconds. And we need to convert this into feet per second. So we need to get miles into feet. Well, we know that there is 5,280 feet in 1 mile. So I'm going to use this as a conversion rate. So I'm going to multiply by a fraction. Since I'm trying to get rid of the miles, I'm putting the 1 mile in the denominator. And the 5,280 feet in the numerator. My miles will cancel out. I'm left with feet per second, so all I need to do is multiply right across the top, across the bottom, giving me 7,920 feet per 144 seconds. Since I wanted feet per 1 second, I just typed that in my calculator, and I get 55 feet per second. Number 7 says, if an 8-ounce steak costs $5.50, what should a 12-ounce steak cost? Here I can set up a proportion to solve this. Since I know an 8-ounce steak costs $5.50, I know it should be equal to 12 ounces over the cost of that 12-ounce steak. Solve this, I'll cross multiply, and I will get 8x is equal to 12 times 550, which is 66. Divide both sides by 8, and I get x is equal to $8.25. So it'll cost $8.25 for a 12-ounce steak. Number 8, I have an equation to solve 0.5x minus 7 equals negative 8 minus 0.2x. I have variables on both sides of my equal sign, so I need to get them on the same side. I'm going to do that by adding 0.2x to both sides, giving me 0.7x minus 7 equals just negative 8 because my 0.2's cancel out. Now I just solve it like a regular equation, add 7 to both sides. 7's on the left cancel out. I have 0.7x equals negative 1. Divide both sides by 0.7. And you gotta get x equals negative 10 over 7, or negative 1.43 approximately. Number 9, I'm simplifying the expression 2x to the power of 3 over 5y squared all over, so this is all divided by 3x over 10y. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this as 2x to the power of 3 over 5y squared divided by 3x over 10y. Now we're dividing by a fraction. Since we are dividing by a fraction, we know it is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. So I'll have 2x to the power of 3 over 5y squared times the reciprocal of 3x over 10y, which is 10y over 3x. Now I'm just multiplying fractions, multiply right across the top, across the bottom. 2 times 10 is 20, so I have 20. And I'm going to go ahead and write out my x cubed times y as x times x times x times y. Then I go to my bottom, I have 5y squared times 3x. Multiply 5 times 3, give me 15. So I have 15 times y squared times x. I'm going to rewrite my y squared as y times y times x. So I have some stuff on the top and bottom I can cancel out. I can cancel out an x here because x divided by x is 1. And I can cancel out a y here and a y there because y divided by y is 1. And I can also reduce 20 over 15 as 4 over 3. So I'm left with a 4x squared over a 3y. For number 11, I need to simplify 4a squared b over 3b squared times 6b over 8a. So I'm multiplying fractions, so right across the top and across the bottom. So I have 4 times 6, which is 24. Then I have an a squared b times b. I'm going to go ahead and write that out. So I have a times a, then times b, all over. 3 times 8 is 24. Then I have b squared times a, so I have b times a. Cross out what I can. I have a 24 on the top and bottom, so those can go. 24 divided by 24 is 1. I can cross out 1a and 2 b's, leaving me with just a as my solution. Number 14 says, Courtney is standing next to a tree. She is casting a shadow 12 feet long, and the tree is casting a shadow of 84 feet long. If Courtney is 5 feet tall, we need to find out how tall the tree is. So we have Courtney. And Courtney is 5 feet tall. She's casting a shadow that is 12 feet long. And then we have this tree. We don't know how tall that is, but we know it casts a shadow of 84 feet. Well, since we know that the sun casts shadows and it makes similar triangles, and we know that similar triangles have ratios of corresponding sides that are equal, I can set up a proportion. And remember, these proportions, all I need to do is correspond. So there are several different proportions I can write. I'm going to take the little side to the big side of one triangle, so 5 to 12, and I know that is going to be equal to the little side of the big side of the other triangle, so the x over 84. Like I said, there are several proportions you can write. They will all give you the same answer if you write them correctly. So now we just need to cross multiply to solve. So I'm going to take 5 times 84, 12 times x, so I have 12x is equal to 420. Divide both sides by 12. And I get x equals 35 feet. So the tree is 35 feet tall. So that finishes up our part 3 of our review. Tune in tomorrow and we'll finish this review up and be ready for our midterm.